Hello and welcome to this little Spalluccipedia video, another little dipping of our toe into the world of my investigative paranormal, Sam Spallucci. But first, before I go on any further, please, the obligatory, like this video, make sure you're subscribed. It makes the fairies in my head so much happier. Okay, so today I want to have a little chat about a character I've used at the time of writing twice in Sam's world, and that's Uncle, the pawnbroker. Now, when I go around, I do readings. One of the excerpts I quite often read, because it's one of my favourites, is Sam's views on the moneylenders through times. It was actually written at the time of the credit crunch back in 2011, before things went even worse. Time of writing now, time recording this now, is actually September 2021. So yeah, things seem to have gone downhill since then even more. No zombies yet, which is probably a good thing because I don't do zombies, but you know what I mean. So the idea of moneylenders was very much at the forefront of my mind when I was doing this, because we had all sort of like the big big adverts on TV of, you know, your payday loans, whatnot, with an incredibly insane amount of interest on that. It was just pushing people under and under and under and under. And it made me think of sort of like when I was growing up. My parents grew up in the Second World War. They're both born in the 1920s, and they were used to when times were hard. And money lending to them was part of the way of life. You know, that they didn't have much cash either of them, so they had to make do amend with what they got. But they saw a lot of friends get into trouble with people financing them. But not the old style financing, not the old style pawnbroker where you take a loved thing to the pawnbroker and they would lend you money for the week or whatever. No, there were people buying things on a hire purchase and never, you know, this boom of the 60s when people told you could have everything you want and you can have it now. Don't think about paying for it, which then would escalate again in the 80s, and then, of course, in the noughties, which got us into the mess we were in. So Sam is very much a product of my parents. He's of the opinion that, you know, we shouldn't be doing this. You know, we should only buy things if you need them. If you do get stuck, then you need to get money from somebody you trust, not necessarily the great big bankers in their big flash cars. So this came about with the idea of Uncle, because I needed somebody who could provide silver bullets for Sam. So obviously a jeweler would be ideal, but a jeweler he could trust. Now, Uncle himself is probably a mixture of like a couple of people. The stories he tells, you know, sort of like is like almost like Jewish fables, Jewish myths, as it were, proverbs, parables, whatever you want to call them. They're quite reminiscent of my dad. You know, my dad, if he was trying to explain something to me, on about something which happened in the dim, distant past, as it were, to me, you know, back before dinosaurs lived, when my dad was a boy. So he'd say, oh, your uncle such and such had a bad time, such and such, because of this, that, and the other. And that's what comes through in this like very rabbinical idea of telling a story about, you know, something to illustrate this point in time. But the looks of Uncle and indeed his profession are based on someone I knew in my previous trade as a retail jeweler. I was a jeweler until I was 30, and ups and downs. There were good sides to it, bad sides to it, which is one reason why I stopped doing it. There's a lot of greed, shall we say. But a lot of characters, especially in like the suppliers. One of them was a chap by the name of Nathan Shenny, who was a very orthodox Hasidic Jew who used to come into our establishment, and he was there in his black overcoat and his large black hat and little ringlets like that, and he comes over, my friends, how are you? You want to do some business today, like this? You know, he's very, very excited about doing business, and he didn't have any cases at all. He never carried any of his cases. He had everything in his coat. He would literally open up his jacket, gold chain, open up the side, gold watches, that sort of thing. And I always remember when I was sat with Nathan, because again, he was another storyteller, just like my dad was. I was thinking, if ever I need to create a jeweler, they are going to be based on you because you're so much larger than life. Sadly, he passed away some years ago. I mean, it was bowel cancer took him eventually. But he's one of those characters. I always thought my life has been improved by knowing, because he really knew how the world worked. And, he'd sit there drinking incredibly strong coffee because he had to have his strong coffee. And we just talk about stuff while we were, doing business. And that's sort of how Uncle came about. And to this day, he remains one of my favourite characters. I hope you enjoyed that. Take care. Keep looking for lurks in the shadows. And please remember, like and subscribe. I'll see you again soon.